Okay. 2.3 equations of linear functions. So if you haven't figured it out yet, Algebra 2 is like fast-paced Algebra 1 right at the beginning. Okay, so this lesson we do today would be like a whole week in Algebra 1, and we'll do the entire thing in like 30 minutes. So it's all review of Algebra 1 stuff we've done, but it's leading to more challenging stuff, right? But we got to make sure you get the basics down. And that keeps happening even if you take pre-calculus next year. First semester is trigonometry. Second semester be like if there's such a thing as Algebra 3, that's what it would be, kind of like college algebra. So fast-paced algebra. Pre-calc's really like a college-paced class, but it's taught at high school, so it's not as intense. But that's kind of how it is. So today we are doing linear equations. This is called standard form right there. Ax plus b, y equals c. We're doing slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And then we're doing point-slope form, okay? It's a form you already learned, but most people forget because the equation is kind of funky. All right, so standard form is this, ax plus by equals c. So a, b, and c are integers. So an integer is, it's a positive or negative whole number. No fractions or decimals allowed. So if you have a fraction or a decimal, you have to clear the fraction or decimal. A has to be greater than or equal to 0. So a can be 0 or a positive number, right? And then if there's a greatest common factor, you can factor out, like every number is even, you have to divide by 2, right, for it to be in the proper form. So we want to make this first example look like this equation. What do I have to do? What's on the wrong side? Right? Because x and y are on the left side of the equal, and that x is on the right side, so we got to get rid of that x. We get rid of that x by subtracting 10x from both sides. There's a sub in there. There's going to be a zoo. I'm going to close the door. Okay. So we get negative 10x plus 2y equals negative 16. So does this match the criteria of the explanation of the formula above? Problem number 1. For 2 reasons, it does not. Problem number 1 is a is negative. Problem number 2, there is a greatest common factor. So we can divide everything by what? What could I divide every number by? 2. And then a cannot be negative, so we should divide every number by negative 2. Right? So technically negative 1, right? But negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. So we can just kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. And then we get 5x minus y equals 8. Then on the right side there, you have to identify a, b, and c. What's a? 5x. Can't say x. It's just the 5. That's important, okay? And then the y is negative 1. Right? Because we could stick a 1 in between the negative and the y and it doesn't change the value, right? And then the c is just 8. Okay, so you're just rearranging the equation. It was like those linear equations we did a couple sections ago. Or literal equations, not linear. So right here we have fractions, so we got to clear the fraction. What do I need to multiply all the numbers, all the parts of the equation by to clear the fraction? We can get what's called the least common multiple. What do you think it is? I know somebody knows. 15, right? So if you do least common multiples, I'm going to do the 3 from the first denominator, the 5 from the second denominator. Multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15. And I can go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So the smallest one that's in common is the least common multiple. That's what that least common multiple means. So what that means is I can multiply each and every part by 15. So show it, don't write the whole thing in parentheses. Show the 15 on every part, because you'll make a mistake and it's annoying making careless errors, so just don't do it. So when I do Hunter, what do I get for the first, this one right here, the first term? 15 divided by 3 is 5. Not hard. I made you panic, didn't I? So I know you're like, oh God. Jonah, 15 times 2?
15 times 2, 30.
Divide by 5?
15. What?
30 divided by 5.
6.
I jumped the gun there. What's 15 times 4? Greta.
60.
Good job. Right, so what I think in my head when I'm doing 15 times 4, I think 10 times 4 is 40, 5 times 4 is 20, 40 plus 20 is 60. Okay? So you can do any of that. What do I need to do to get that x on the left side? Minus 6x. I can't combine the x with the y, right? So you just got to write them in order. I'm going to write it up here so I have room for my last step. Negative 6x plus 5y. If there's no sign, it's always positive. What do I have to do now, Lorelai? A can't be negative. How do I get rid of that negative? By?
3, 6.
Anyone help? Negative 1. Right? Because that just switches the sign. You can either multiply or divide by negative 1. It doesn't matter. It's just generally easier to show the step dividing by negative 1. So we get 6x minus 5y equals negative 60. James, what's A? What's B, Kate? What's C, Lily? Negative 60. Okay, good. That's all you got to do, right? No big deal. Okay? Slope-intercept form. Don't say it out loud. Raise your hand if you know what it is. Slope-intercept form, what is it? Come on. Y equals mx plus b. Good job raising your hand. Y equals mx plus b. The m is the?
Slope.
The b is the?
Y-intercept.
What does the y-intercept mean?
Intersects the y-axis.
Where it crosses the y-axis. It is your starting point. That's totally valid, right? It's where it crosses the y-axis. And when we graph a line in slope-intercept form, we start at the y-intercept and then count out the slope from there. So this next one, example 3, we got to make this look like y equals mx plus b. What's the first step, Kate? We want to get the y by itself.
Oh, yeah, so you do.
Got to get rid of that.
Divide by 12. Sorry, minus
I know you
12.
meant to say minus 12x.
Yeah.
It's all good. So we get negative 4y equals negative 12x plus 24. What's the last step there, Tanner?
You're going to divide by negative 4.
Divide by negative 4. Right? We got to have positive y, so that's why we got to get rid of the negative as well. When I do that, I get y equals 3x minus 6. What is the slope, L?
3.
Yep. What's y-intercept, L? Good job. Okay, easy peasy. Don't write the x. That's the only thing you guys mess up. You write that x, so just all it is the number. So what's in front of the x. What do I have to do on this next one, Briley? Because the y is on the wrong side and the x is on the wrong side.
Add 2y.
Add 2y. And what can I also do? Same step.
Subtract 4x.
Perfect. Add 2y minus 4x. And I'm going to write, so don't write 22 minus 4x, right? Because we want to get it in slope-intercept form. So the x part comes first and the number part comes second. So we have 2y on the left side. This is where I mean the x part comes first, negative 4x. The number part comes second, positive 22. What's my last step there, anyone? Divide by 2. Okay? So what I get is y equals negative 2x plus 11. Slope is 2. Negative 2, I mean. Y-intercept is 11. Okay? Very basic algebra stuff. But again, that would be like 2 days in Algebra 1. You'd be beating that stuff over your head. All right, so we got a story problem. It's got a lot of work to it, but it's not very difficult work. But you still got to know what to do when. And that's sometimes is the tricky part. Okay, so we're going to read this in 2013. Important info. 1.3 billion, 1.31 billion smartphone users. 2017, there were 2.38 billion smartphone users. And we want to estimate the users in 2025. And we're going to write and use an equation to estimate that. So when you do these problems, x is always time. Because sometimes it's confusing, like which is independent, which is dependent variable. Independent is x, dependent is y. The y is the smartphone users. Right? They don't say iPhone because then it makes the Galaxy people feel bad. Whatever. Okay, so if anyone remember that equation for slope where it's y2 on top, y2 minus
Y1 over X2 minus X1.
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to identify y2, y1, x2, x1 in this equation. So the first time I come across as x1, the first billions of smartphone users is y1. Second thing I come across is x2. And then the second billions of users is the y2. And this 2025 is what we're going to plug into our equation once we figure out our equation. So I'm going to subtract the two y's on top for my slope right here. I'm going to write it over here so I have a little more room. 2.38 minus 1.31 over 2017 minus 2013. And when we do that, our slope is 1.07 over 4. I'm going to write it right in here. So we're going to plug in one of our order pairs for x and y in y equals mx plus b. Okay? So I'm going to choose to plug in the 2013 and the 1.31. You could just as easily plug in the other ones and get the correct answer. So 1.31 for the y. My slope, we just figured out 1.07 over 4. My x value is 2013. And we're trying to find the new b. I would get your calculator out and just make sure you can multiply those two numbers correctly. And I'll show you the trick again, how to do it on the calculator. If you hit alpha y equals, so alpha right here, then y equals, it brings up that little window. And you can hit number 1 and it gives you a little fraction, which is handy. The benefit of doing that is you don't have to use parentheses. And then we're going to multiply that by 2013. So the multiplication there is implied, right? And you get 538.48. We'll round to hundreds. So just take a minute, make sure you can do that in your calculator, because it's important to be able to do that stuff correctly. Otherwise you miss points on a math test for no reason, which is annoying.
Could you show how to write the function?
Yep, you go alpha, right below second, y equals, and then hit number 1. Did it work?
Alpha Y.
Yeah, okay. Just like that. And then you should get that 538.48. Does anyone need help doing that? Okay, so we're going to use that right here. So we get 1.31 equals 538.48 plus b. So we have to subtract that 538 over. I'm going to squeeze it in down here. When we subtract that, we get negative 537.17. So b equals negative 537.17. And then we're going to put it in slope-intercept. 1.07 divided by 4x minus 537.17. So generally when you do these real life kind of problems, they have real life numbers in there and the numbers don't work out to be whole numbers. They're ugly like they are in this problem, which you just got to deal with. It's not that big a deal. So next thing we're going to do is plug in this 2025 right here in for this x right here. Okay? So final part of the equation is this, y equals 1.07 divided by 4 times 2025 minus 537.17. So do you think you might get a question like that on your test? Hell yeah. 4.52 billion. Does anybody know how many people are on planet Earth? 8 billion. So that's over half of the people in 2025 had cell phones. Right? That's a lot. I have no idea if it's a true number or not, but if you think about like some of the poorer countries, like the third world countries that don't even have electricity, there's a lot of people that live in those countries that don't have cell phones. But I mean, I've driven through pretty rural parts of Mexico and every single person I saw had a cell phone, right? So it's probably more than that, I would guess. Closer to 6, I would guess. All right, point slope's a weird one you may or may not remember. Here it is. Y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So remember I've been trying to harass you into making flashcards? We're going to have extra credit opportunity of you bringing in a little packet of flashcards, and I'll count it for a homework assignment. Okay? So bring in a pack of flashcards, and then we'll just have a ton of flashcards in here that people can use whenever they want. Because like this test, what I love to do is like the first 5 or 6 problems are going to be these formulas. I'll say point slope blank, and you tell me that equation. Okay? Because if you don't know the equations, you're cooked on the test anyways, right? You got no chance. So we want you to know how to do this stuff for the test. So when we plug in, the key thing to remember, this, I'm writing it intentionally above the 3 and negative 5. You always plug in x1 and y1 with opposite signs. And I'll show you why I'm not going to use opposite signs, but I'll show you why in a second. Well, on one of them I won't. So we get y minus negative 5 equals, our slope is 11, because the m is right here, slope is 11, times x minus 3. So you can see this part right here was opposite, right? It was positive 3, now it's negative 3. And this minus minus makes what? What's negative times negative?
Positive.
Positive, yeah. So we can just make that a big fat positive right there. And that's it, right? So we just can write y plus 5 equals 11 times the quantity, x minus 3. Done. Try to do example 7 on your own. I'm going to freeze the screen. Just plug in using opposite signs. Super easy. You can double check, or if you're struggling, look up there and it's up there. So instead of positive 4, it's negative 4. Remember the y comes first. That's another thing. People plug in the x where the y is and the y where the x is. So just be careful with that, right? But instead of positive 4, it's negative 4. Instead of negative 2, it's positive 2. So that's what I mean by the opposite signs. Slope we already talked about, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That'd be another formula question I'd ask, right? So we have just in this lesson, standard form, slope-intercept form, slope, and point slope. So 4 formulas in this lesson alone. First 4 questions on your test. Or early on your test. I'll just ask you for those formulas, right? So, super easy. This formula always irritated me as a kid. Like it shouldn't irritate me that much kind of way. So all I think about instead of remembering that formula is I subtract second y minus first y. So if it helps you to label those points like that, go for it. Like if I were doing this problem on my own, I would not label it. But, you know, if it helps you, who cares? Do it. 13 minus 1, right? That's subtracting the second y minus first y. Second x is 7. First x is 1. 13 minus 1 is 12. 7 minus 1 is 6. If you can divide the numbers or if you can reduce the fraction, you have to do that. So slope is 2. Exactly. So again, if it helps you to label them, who cares? You're less likely to mess up the equation if you label it, right? But if you totally get it, you don't need to label it. It's all good. Negative 6 minus 5, second y minus first y. Second x minus first x, 4 minus negative 2, or 4 plus 2. So you can do that sign switch in your head as well. Minus minus makes plus. That's why it's 4 plus 2. So we get negative 11 over 6. Remember, when you're adding two negatives, add the numbers, keep the sign. Easiest way to remember how to do that, then it's really easy. So literally doing slope, that's a whole day of Algebra 1, slope. We're already to the last problem, okay? In 2011, the Miami Marlins had 11,000 followers on social media. In 2016, they had 240,000 followers. We're going to write an equation in point slope that represents the number of followers, y. So followers is y. The Miami Marlins had X years after they joined the league in 2009. Okay? So how many years after 2009 is 2011? 2. How many years after 2009 is 2016? 7. So this is my x1 and this is my x2. The first followers we see is the y1. The second followers we see is the y2. So when we set this equation up, we have to get the slope first for point slope. That's the other thing about math. You think about that formula name, point slope. What does it have? It has a point and a slope, right? Oh yeah, math makes sense, right? Not for everyone, but so we're going to do y2, 240,000, I cannot say that number. 240,000 minus 11,000 over 7 minus 2. Because we switched the years, right? The 2016 is 7 years after 2009. So that's why we made it a 7. And then the 2011 is 2 years after 2009. So that's why it's 7 minus 2 on the bottom. Okay, what about it?
Oh, never mind.
Are you sure? The second, right? The second y is this one, 240,000. First y is the 11,000. That's why we subtracted those two.
I got it mixed.
Okay, it's all good. So 240,000 minus 11,000 is 229,000. 7 minus 2 is 5. That divides equally into 45,800, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, 45,800. So here's my question to you, and this is a good question to ask on a test. What does that number mean, 45,800? It's a slope, but what does a slope mean? How much it went up over what time every year. Good. That's the part you got to add, right? That means the social media followers increased by an average of 45,800 per year. So what you're going to learn how to do later on in this chapter, you know how in Algebra 1, you probably don't remember, but we would have a scatter plot of dots, right, with a positive slope, and we draw in a line of best fit that cut the dots in half. And you had to come up with the equation of that line by estimation. We're going to learn how to do that on the graphing calculator with kind of a jagged line of slopes. And it'll give you the exact equation of that line of best fit. And it'll also give you what's called a correlation, which is an indication of how accurate a prediction you can make, right? Correlation ranges from positive to -1. So closer to either positive or -1, the better a prediction you can make. So we're going to choose x1 and y1 and plug it into point slope. So we're going to use the 2 and the 11,000. I'm going to rewrite the point slope equation. This is something students are reluctant to do. It just helps you to know where to plug things in. So I recommend you do it. I can't make you do it. So the y1 right here is 11,000. So minus 11,000. Our slope is 45,800. And then this x right here, and this y, they always stay in the equation. Okay? So we're plugging in x1 and y1, not the x and the y. So x minus what? X minus 2. Okay, that's the equation in point slope form. Okay, we good? Any questions? All right, that's it.